writers, if you are to this point in week 2, you should be ready to start WPA number 1. Some of you may also be previewing a little bit of this video to get more information about the Raymond essay and what you should do on the discussion board. That will be within the first few minutes, so you can watch to that point and then pause and come back to the rest when you're ready to start WPA number 1. So if you are to this point ready to start WPA number 1, you should have completed the rest of the work for Wednesday, because that's going to set you up to understand what your essay might include or look like. And then I just want to remind you of the checklist and what's due on Friday. So before you get to this point, you should have read the textbook chapter 3, Plan Your Composition. If you have not yet, go ahead and pause and read that, please. And here we are with WPA number 1 walkthrough. From here, you're going to open up, while we are going through this, paper number 1's WPA for some brainstorming and planning, and that will be due by the end of this week, 11:59 on Friday. So let's take a look on Classroom at the paper number 1 information sheet and just take a look at a few of the things there. So remember, in an explication essay, our job is to explain using details, examples, and descriptions. Since this is about you, you're going to use personal storytelling and different examples of things that have happened to you, moments from your own experience, as well as things like how that made you feel, what that made you think about. So we want a mix of different types of details within this essay. Remember too, to avoid plagiarism, you don't need to Google this topic. You shouldn't do any outside research. If you decide something like you want to include a fact, for example, you're talking about ADHD, you want to include how many people are impacted by this. Please make sure you have emailed me because I want to make sure that you do that correctly and responsibly so that we don't have any issues that come up. But for the most part, you don't need to do that. You can notice here how this fits into the objectives as well as the requirements. So please note it's a bare minimum word count of 700. In order to get credits for a composition course, you need to write a certain amount of words and pages, and that's determined by national accreditation standards. So that's sort of the bare minimum. Most essays will go beyond, and maybe even a little bit beyond, well beyond 700 words. If you start to get like more than 3 pages, you might want to get more narrow or just work on trimming your writing. And we can certainly talk about that as the drafts are due. I didn't list the due dates here because you can find them on the course schedule. General tips and guidelines are here to help you craft a good audience when you're conceiving of your topic, or craft a good paper. Clear sense of audience. Here's what the intro should do. Here's what the thesis should do. Here's what body paragraphs will look like. Here's what the conclusion should include, and some other tips as well. You can find the prompts here. Really importantly, they include some example thesis statements. So you can use that to help you craft a good thesis statement. Please make sure you've read through this very, very carefully. You want to make sure the paper that you write fulfills the required assignment. So just a quick refresh on explication. This was mentioned in the first video lesson of the week, but I want to make sure it's fresh in your mind. Your job is to explain in detail to help your audience understand something they might be unfamiliar with. In this case, that something is some aspect of your identity and your experience that you feel people need to understand better, need to know more about, need to correct their misunderstandings about. And here are your 3 prompt options: what it means to be me. So your thesis would be, this is what it means to be blank, or being this type of person means experiencing these types of things. Prompt B, it's complicated, where you're intentionally contradicting maybe a stereotype or a common misconception. And prompt C, my community, myself, where you're specifically discussing how being in a particular community, could be even the gaming community, right? Anything we would consider a community with its own sort of norms and structures, how that has influenced an aspect of your identity. So it's made me more independent, or could be something even negative, or usually a mix of the two. Keep in mind, who's your audience? Who do you think would benefit the most from learning about this? And what do you want them to take away from your essay? Then from there, what details can you provide that help them understand your experience in the best way? We also have these 3 key things that make explication essays effective. They have a focused and clear thesis statement. That thesis statement is pretty narrow. instead of broad. Overly broad is not as interesting, and more people already will understand that. A clear sense of audience and purpose, and compelling details and illustrations, storytelling, examples from your life, and more abstract as well. So as we're thinking about the types of details that go into an effective explication essay, and this is specifically now to part of your instructions for the discussion board on Raymond being 17, bright, and able to read. So there's two different types of details we need to make sure are mixed within this paper: concrete details and abstract details. So concrete details are going to be things that actually happened, experiences you had, events from your life, specific moments from your life. So these are examples that are real life. So you could tell a story about a time a box fell on your head. You could tell about this time your parents said this thing to you, or a teacher said this to you, right? So those concrete moments. They're going to mention specific concrete things. Where were you? Who was there? What was said? What happened? What actions were taking place? So concrete nouns and vivid verbs. But you don't just want to say, a box fell on my head, and expect your readers to know what that meant to you, or what that felt like, or what that experience is like for someone with your sense of identity. So we always mix in abstract as well. So, okay, what did that make you think about? What does that make you wonder? How does that increase your anxiety? How does that increase your joy? What feelings does that make you feel? Some students tend to struggle with getting the concrete. Some students tend to struggle with getting the abstract. But oftentimes the structure of a paragraph, and we will talk about this more when we get to paragraphing, is begin with an abstract claim and then fill in with stories, and then bring the paragraph back to a discussion of how those stories impacted you in a more abstract way. So you could say, for example, being a mom as a teacher means I'm often sort of splitting my time. Right? That's very abstract because there's no specific people in that sentence, no specific incidents. But then I'm going to tell examples. For example, right? You're probably going to use the phrase, or one day when my child was 4, right? So that's going to take me to a very specific moment. So for your discussion board, what I'm asking you to do is find one concrete moment from the essay that you think worked really well in helping the readers understand. And then at least one moment where the writer of that essay, Raymond, breaks down what that felt like. And Raymond's his last name, by the way. We always refer to authors by last names. His just happens to also be someone's first name, but his last name is Raymond. So a time he told us how that felt, what that made him think about, that's when he goes into abstract. So I want you to notice how that essay switches back and forth between those two things. And what do you think are some of the more effective ways that's happening? The second part of the discussion board asks you to consider audience and purpose. Who's the writer talking to? He says specifically who he's talking to towards the end of this essay, and specifically what he wants from those people towards the end of the essay. So you should find a very direct, specific mention of who he's talking to and what he wants. And your conclusion can do that too if you feel it fits with your paper. What makes this essay effective? Does it fulfill its purpose? Does it resonate with the intended audience? So you have a chance to sort of reflect on what you believe makes this essay effective. Okay, so we're going to turn now to your process doc, keeping all of these things in mind, all of these things that you will be needing to include in the paper. So the process doc is going to include brainstorming and planning. You should have already read the assigned section from Plan Your Composition. And on that process doc, you're going to include 2 types of brainstorming from the textbook. So the textbook includes a list of several different types of brainstorming. You're going to choose 2 that you think would be valuable to you. So you're going to do 2 different types of brainstorming. So let me show you on Classroom what that looks like on the process doc. All right. So first of all here, create a list of different elements of your identity you think might work for this paper. We call this first step invention, coming up with something that you might potentially write for this paper. So we did this in a very loose note-taking way. You may have something that wasn't on there. You may want to add some of those aspects of identity from here. Note this, you should have several. Several is more than 5. There are a multitude of things about each of ourselves, and I want to see that you've thought about many things. Even if you feel like you know where you're going to lean, I want to see a lot of things. You don't have to put anything personal if you don't want me to read it, but whatever, right? So different elements of your identity, where you came from. It could be age related. It could be sex, sexual orientation. It could be gender things. It could be language. It could be socioeconomic status. All kinds of different things about yourself. Hobbies, career, family stuff. So tons and tons of things here. And you can pull from the brainstorming you already did in this week's first video lesson. Then I just want you to sort of narrow down. So of what you have up there, what do you think you are leaning towards? What do you think would be the most effective for a paper? To help you decide, you might consider what aspects of your identity you tend to feel tend to be most misunderstood, or that you wish people understood better. So remember too that intersectionality. If you have mom, if you have teacher, if you have white, if you have Spanish speaking, these are singular things, but so many people are moms, and what it's like to be a mom, that would be gigantic as an essay, right? That could be a book because there's so many different types of experiences. But if we can go across that circle or consider combining some of these, what is it like to be a mom and a college teacher, right? That's a little more specific, and therefore it's going to be more narrow, something you can handle within 3 to 4 pages. So from there, I'm going to say mom and teacher. And I might even turn it into a phrase. What it's like, gosh. Okay. Possible topic number 2, what it's like to be a college student from a family farm. Okay, both of those things were true for me when I was in college, so maybe, whatever, right? Both of these things, though, aren't just true about me. They're things that I considered essential to my identity in the time, right? So you want to make sure you're picking identity depth types of things. So I've got 2 possible topics, right? From there, question number 3 is asking you to choose 2 brainstorming strategies from transition. So here are some of them, but you want to make sure you go back to transition so that you see an example, so that you are doing them according to the textbook's recommendation. The purpose here is you may have brainstorming that works for you already. I want you to try some new things. A lot of times we tend to get stuck on coming up with things, and fleshing out ideas before you start writing can just help you make your paragraphs. You can go back to your brainstorm and say, oh, I had something here about this. I need a paragraph about that. Or when you're stuck, you can't quite get to 3 pages, let me go back to my brainstorming. Oh, I said this, but I didn't mention it yet. I can add a paragraph about that. So I want you to be thorough here. I'm looking for thoroughness, not just minimum. And that will correlate to your score as well. So I noted here too, if you want to do something like a web, you could just do that on a piece of paper, take a picture, send the picture to yourself, upload the picture onto this, and that'll work great too. Or you can do it straight on here. So maybe I want to do free writing. In fact, I recommend everybody free write. So you could do something like setting a timer is what is recommended for 4 to 5 minutes, depending on how much writing stamina you have, and just write about whatever comes to mind in that set amount of time. And I want you to think about the types of things you experience, the types of feelings or stories you have about these identities that you chose. You can do both brainstorms about one topic. You can do one brainstorm about each topic, but I want you to do 2 different types of brainstorming. So not 2 clusters, do a free write and a cluster. And again, you could do a free write over topic 1 and then a cluster over topic 1, or a free write over topic 1 and a cluster over topic 2, right? So I want to see 2 different brainstorming strategies. They can be over the same topic or different ones. So here's what a free write might look like. Being a teacher at a college and a mom can be really challenging sometimes. Sometimes I feel really overwhelmed because I have to spend time at home grading and planning. And sometimes my daughter wants my attention during those moments. Sometimes I miss out on family things, like last weekend when my daughter and husband went for a hike and I had to stay home prepping class. On the other hand, I love my job and really value the time I spend working on improving my practice. Okay, so this wasn't 4 minutes yet. You want to keep going, but notice something. I didn't stop to fix this. I know what I meant. This is brainstorming, okay? So brainstorming, you do not censor yourself unless it's something you don't think that I should see because it's wildly inappropriate, right? But you don't need to go back and fix it. You can at the end if it bothers you before you submit it. That would be a good idea. In fact, you should always sort of make things look a little tidier and professional. I'm going to fix these eyes before I submit it. Please always fix your eyes before you submit it because it's easy to do. Google Docs is telling you to do it, right? So you can fix it later. But as you're brainstorming, you don't need to stop and fix stuff. You can do that when you're totally done with it because it needs to come out of your brain in a flowy way, okay? I'm going to delete this so it's not there when you all open it. Okay, so brainstorming should come first after you've brainstormed some topics. Part 2 is development, okay? So here's a sample topic already waiting, being a perfectionist teacher. Concrete examples are going to be very specific stories. They're going to have nouns. They're going to have, I don't think this should say Bill. Evaluation from last semester. There we go. So grading homework is a specific action. An evaluation that I received from last semester is a specific thing. I might even say student X from last semester, okay, who said this. And maybe that was positive, maybe that was negative or whatever, right? And then on this side, I want to think about feelings, thoughts, etc. So these are the more abstract things. Oh, that makes me feel really frustrated. It makes me feel helpful but helpless at the same time. So I'm sort of breaking down these stories. You could start in this column if that comes more naturally to you. Being a mom and a teacher at the same time, overwhelmed. Then I need to think, okay, over here, what's an example of a time I felt overwhelmed? This is going to help you within your paragraphs combine abstract and concrete, so your essay just works better for the reader if they have both of these types of details. How many? At least 4. At least 4 in each column. And they can match or they can not match. But you're probably going to have at least 4 body paragraphs, and this is a great place to start. 5 or 6 is great too because some of them will probably combine into the same paragraphs. So I'm going to delete this. Of course, you can pause on it if you want to use it as a resource. Down here then, I have a place for you to mention audience and purpose. So audience is not everyone, okay? That can be your secondary audience, but you need to have in mind a primary audience that you're focusing on. You need to think who would benefit from the most from learning about what it's like to be a perfectionist teacher. And you get to pick. I want to talk maybe to students. I really want students to understand this. Or I really want the spouses of teachers to understand this because they tend to misunderstand. Oh, why do you have to do that on the weekend? Why do you have to do this? Well, I don't have any other time, whatever, right? So a specific audience. And then your purpose is what you want them to take away. What do you want from people? I want students to be more understanding that their teachers are human too, that they feel pressure too, that when a student gives feedback that's phrased in a rude way, that is impactful, right? That is hurtful sometimes even too. Or I want spouses to understand just the amount of time it takes to do this type of a job, right? So you want to write here very clearly, very specifically, your specific audience and the specific thing that you want, okay? And if you've done all this according to these instructions, you should have no problem getting full score on this. I will leave feedback though. So if it looks like you've chosen a topic, that might not work. You won't lose points as long as you've done this assignment thoroughly. You've thought through all the brainstorming techniques, but you will get feedback. You can adjust from there or ask questions from there if you need to. Please let me know via email if you have any questions, and good luck on thinking of topics. Can't wait to see what you come up with. Bye.